Hello everybody, happy Friday. It is Friday, May 8th, the 56th day of social distancing when I first make this video. And today I'm going to show you how I like to make my time lapses, how I put my videos into Google Drive so that I can use them in my presentation. So even if you're not thinking about making a time lapse, you may still want to watch this video so that you can see how you can take a video and put it in your Drive, changing the permissions so that once it's in a presentation, everyone's going to be able to view it. All right, so let's talk about time lapses. The first thing that I like to think about is when I record a time lapse, I want to record something that has an interesting rate of change over time. Right? So it can be a variety of things. Cars can look really cool. If you're recording at school or indoors, passing time or times when there's a lot of people coming or going, that's going to make a time lapse pretty interesting. So being at home during this quarantine, I don't have a lot of subjects to work with, but one thing I do have to work with is the clouds. So the other day, the clouds looked really awesome. This time lapse I'm going to show you is actually filmed over 2 different days. And so I set up the DSLR, I pointed it at the clouds, and I hit the time lapse button. Now, if you're not recording with a DSLR, it is a little bit trickier, but you can still prop up an iPhone or a cell phone or any recording device that has that time-lapse function and just set it up and aim it at the sky. You can also just record a video and speed it up, but I find a time-lapse looks a whole lot better if you use one of the time-lapse functions specifically on a device. So let's go take a look at quarantine clouds. Okay, so you probably noticed that that video was not just one shot, but it was actually, I think, 5 different videos that were combined together. So some of them were shot at different frame rates. The first video and the final video, my favorite one, kind of those clouds at sunset, those were shot at a 10-second interval, shooting 600 pictures. So that took, let's see, 6,000 seconds, right? So 6,000 seconds, I don't know, you can do the math on how long it takes in order to do that time lapse. So it takes a while. You have to set up your camera and you have to just leave it there and let it happen, but you can get some interesting results. For the other videos, I didn't have as much time, and so I had a 5-second interval and I shot, I think, 400 pictures for each one. So once again, you can do the math, see how many total photos that is. But I don't use all of the video in my work, right? So when I go ahead to edit it down, I think it makes it a little more interesting. Now, watching a time-lapse clip generally, at least in my opinion, is only interesting for a few seconds because as you're watching something, okay, so the clouds keep going by, people go by like ants, or cars go by, and it looks interesting. But I think what makes it look a lot more interesting is if you have some change going on. That's why I cut from clip to clip, so that even though you're still watching clouds go by, you're at least watching the scene change where there's different framing by different trees. Another thing, talking about framing, is I like to have that style that gives some continuity from one time lapse to the next. If you notice in each one, I was really specific to show the trees that hem in the edges of the frame. This is something that I like to apply to a lot of my photography, but I think it really kind of guides your eye towards the center of where the actions is going to be happening. And then because it is a time-lapse video, you're able to see all sorts of interesting changes that occur. Now, another feature that I like to add, or another characteristic to add, is some camera movement. So my camera actually didn't move at all. It sat completely still on the tripod for the entire time. But in post-processing, I used the Ken Burns effect because I was using Final Cut Pro, where I have my start and end point on the frame slightly different on each one. So you'll notice on some of them, it's going to go from being further in on the clouds and slowly reveal back to showing more of the frame of the trees. On some, it follows the direction of the clouds going from left to right. Okay, so the last thing that I also did in the video, and you probably didn't even notice, is that I was changing the speed and I was changing the direction of the clips. Some of the clips that you're looking at are actually in reverse. And the reason why I chose to do that is I think that the entire video has a nice flow to it, because you'll notice that the clouds are traveling from the left to the right across the entire video. So as you watch that, there's this continuity. It almost feels like there's direction of one continuous cloud shot heading from left to right. Now, you don't necessarily have to do that. That's just something that I think stylistically worked really nicely. And the final thing that I want to talk about is how I add music to my time lapses. So with a lot of videos, I shoot the video first and then I try and think about what kind of music emulates the mood. For this time lapse, what I did was, even though I did shoot the video first, I had no idea what music I was going to listen to. And I went into the YouTube Creator Studio and I just started listening to different songs. And I found this one track. It had a cool, like a little funk beat to it. And I thought it would fit well. And then I edited my clips to the music. So each clip ends on the downbeat and the next one starts. Now, you don't notice it as much because there is a cross dissolve from one clip to the next. Because it's clouds, it kind of feels dreamy as one fades and another one appears. But that's pretty much that's my philosophy on how I like to create a time lapse. Each one can be different. There is no right or wrong way to do it. I just wanted to show you kind of my thought process. So I'm taking my file from my desktop where I have it saved, and I'm going to drag it directly into my drive screen so that I'm able to upload that file. Now, I could just put the file in individually and then go and change its permissions so that anyone with a link or public, or if I really just wanted to have one specific viewer, for this project's case, make sure that I'm that one specific viewer if you're going that option. But you can really just make it so that anyone with a link, or make the file completely public. Now, if you're going to be adding multiple videos, let's say you're doing 4 different video projects, you probably just want to create a folder in your Google Drive and then have the permission set the same way. That way, every video that you add into that folder already has those permissions. So if you've created a media arts folder already at school, just go ahead and put them in that folder. Make sure that folder is shared with me or is set to public so that I'm able to see it and anyone that we want to share your work with is able to see it. So hopefully this was helpful for you guys. By now you should be about halfway done with your project, and I really want to challenge you guys to try new creative things. If you have tons of work in your other classes, I totally understand if you are not halfway yet, but please, by June 1st, make sure you're finished with the project so that you can really experience enough of the creative things for that. So I hope you guys are staying safe out there. I hope you guys are still finding ways to be creative. Hopefully this time-lapse project has sparked some ideas for you. So I will see you in the next video.